Hi, I'm Eddie Conway coming to you from Baltimore, Maryland. Today I want to look at a situation that's currently going on in Alabama. Inmates in 3 different Alabama prisons have initiated a widespread strike in protest of unjust conditions. They have issued a range of demands addressing exploitative labor policies and overcrowdedness of the prison, which are operating at over 200% capacity. Prison officials have retaliated by reducing prisoners' meals portions and using other tactics to undermine their movement. Joining me to discuss this is Pastor Kenneth Glasgow, who worked for a Project South, a nonprofit that works to eliminate economic injustice. Kenneth, can you tell me what are the prisoners' list of demands?
Well, first of all, I'm Pastor Glasgow with the Ordinary People Society. I'm the founder of the Ordinary People Society and the Prodigal Child Project.
Okay.
And what we have here is really something that has been building up, a balling pot that has really been building up and just about blown over.
Okay.
They had a strike before. No one paid attention to it. We tried to get labor unions involved and all. But now this strike is because they just can't take it no more. They're over 212% over capacity, can't get proper medical treatment. They're bird feeding them. They use for retaliation, going to get guys from work release to come in and do their job.
Wait a minute, Pastor. What does bird feeding mean? I spent 44
Bird,
years in jail, and it sounds scary. What does that mean if bird feeding them?
well, I spent 14 years in prison. So bird feeding is when they give you food that's just enough barely to keep you living. A
Okay.
spoonful of this, a spoonful of that. So, for instance, we have online at thedollarline.com, we have pictures that I will be sending to you all as well, to
Okay.
where they're giving them one piece of bologna, one hot dog, 2 pieces of bread, a spoonful of grits, and 2 pieces of bread for breakfast, one sausage, and 1 piece of bread for dinner, and stuff like that. That's bird food.
Just enough to keep them alive, but actually they're starving them?
Is starving them. And
Okay.
that's the retaliation from the peaceful strike that they're doing. Also, they use other inmates from different locations, work releases, as I was saying, in order to undermine the strike. And even there's a rumor, and it's just a rumor, but it's going on that a couple of, I have to speak anonymously because a lot of the officers don't want to lose their job. But they was at a point to where they were actually calling me and saying, hey, we finna go on strike if they don't do something about this. Because we're not paid to clean up, we're not paid to cook and clean, and we're not paid to do their laundry and all that. So the officers had started to have to do it, and then they went and got other inmates.
Hmm.
But getting to their demands.
Yeah,
The,
go ahead.
their demands is the in-prison slavery, and I'll read it verbatim. Alabama Department of Corrections compels prisoners to work without pay. Every other prison around surrounding states in Georgia and Florida and Mississippi, they're getting paid at least anywhere, not minimum wage, but half of minimum wage or more. They're getting paid in Alabama 17 cents an hour. And now what people don't realize is all of your license plates, people know are being produced in prison. But people don't realize Victoria's Secret, oh, I'm sorry, female, all your Victoria's Secret, yeah, made in prison, got stock in prison. All your uniforms, most of your furniture, all that is made in prison. And people don't realize that or know that. In Alabama, you got $1.5 million budget and payroll and all that they produce out of these prisons. And all of this work is being done by inmates. So this is what they mean by ending slavery type prisons or ending indentured servitude, because that still exists in our 13th Amendment. No man can be held under slavery or involuntary servitude except to buy for felony conviction. Then they want to repeal the Habitual Offender Act. In Alabama and any other state, if you get 3 crimes, the same crime or something like that, and it's not really a violent crime or not really a crime that causes people hurt, harm, danger, or suffering, what ends up happening is they look at the severity of the crime before they give you an habitual offender status. Here in Alabama, you can have 3 crimes that are that don't matter. Like you can have one breaking and entering crime, low-level property crime. You have another possession crime, and then you get another possession. That's 3 felonies. Automatically, you are have the opportunity to get a life sentence, and that's a life without parole. So they're not looking at the severity of the crimes. They're not saying it got to be 3 of the same crimes. In Alabama, it's just a 3-strike law. And we
Okay,
know
in fact, I've seen cases where the 3rd crime was as less as shoplifting a pack of cookies in the
exactly.
store, and have led to life convictions.
Well,
Okay, go ahead though with the demands.
and even worse than that, you got people here in Alabama that got life sentences for possession of marijuana, where 23
Yes.
states is legal and 2 of the states is totally legalized for recreational use. In Alabama, you get a life without parole, a total life sentence without parole for the Habitual Offender Act. Over 8,000 people that's in Alabama serving time now are enhanced because of the Habitual Offender Act. This would clearly bring the overcrowding down by 8,000 people. The next thing they're looking at is expanding the scope of the Innocence Inquiry Commission. What happened here is that a legislator came up with a bill stating that they need to investigate when Hinton. The Hinton case is one that we need to look at. They found out they was finna execute on death row, finna kill him, and found out that he was innocent. When that came up, a legislator came up with a bill to expand the inquiry commission of innocence because, they found out that they were housing people that could potentially be innocent. And so what ends up happening is they watered the bill back down and made compromises to where it only applied to death row inmates. But what about the people that's not on death row that's innocent? You just want to house them and keep them? So that's the other thing. Then you want to talk about the abolishing the mandatory life without. And we just went on that. We talked about that. But mainly, let's talk about the first-time offenders. You got a first-time offender that gets a gun charge, a possession charge, and a sales charge. That's 3 charges. It's his first time, but he still get 3 charges, and automatically he get life without. So we need to look at that. They talked about reforming the Alabama Parole Board. Now, I was explaining to them earlier that in the Senate Bill 67, the Alabama Prison Reform Act that just passed, that's one of the things that's addressed in Senate Bill 67. So we're going to be pushing that. Senator Cam Ward is a bipartisan effort with a few of us advocates, Secretary of State and Senator Cam Ward. We'll be pushing that one. And that one is the only one that has been already addressed. None of the others have. Mm-hmm. We're also looking at the drive-by shooting. The drive-by shooting you can look at is really something that's pertaining to race. In Alabama, if we look at our 1901 Constitution, the moral turpitude clauses are based on race. The 1865, 1816, and all those constitutions were remitted and gone into the 1901, still carried over that racial bias and that racial language. A moral turpitude of felon. Felon was even derived from racial epithets or something like that. So we have to look at changing that. Now, in a drive-by shooting, you could have road rage, which is usually done by whites, but is not classified as a drive-by shooting, where drive-by shooting is more or less done by blacks and is more severe in the sentencing. Then we have to implement the education, the rehabilitation, and the reentry preparedness. Now, in looking at this in Alabama, there is no.
Well, just 1 second, because the drive-by shooting thing. You're saying that in some cases, if it's a black person that might get in an argument on a highway and shoot a gun from the car as a road rage or something, you're saying that's being classified as gang activity also?
That's being classified as drive-by shooting. That's exactly why that bill was designed.
Okay, but
So,
that same law is not being applied that way to white people in cars
sir, we're talking about Alabama, where the
okay. I
disparities.
just wanted to be clear. I just wanted to
If we
understand you.
really
Okay.
want to talk about race and this and that, we cannot talk about the drug war without talking about race. We can't talk about mass incarceration without talking about race. That's like talking about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with just applying peanut butter but no jelly. Okay?
Okay.
In
All right.
Alabama, the disparities are so harsh. If you look at the sentencing, you look at the arrest, and look at the bonds. Oh my God, I thank God for real news. Thank God for you all. Because y'all are looking at that and see, they could hide everything else. Because one of the demands I have is that they have open records. In Alabama, a person could get shot and killed, and the family can't even get a police report. In Alabama, in the prisons, they don't even have a grievance procedure. So there's no, so in order to keep down the strikes or keep down retaliatory acts or to keep down the fighting and all this, they should have grievance procedures where, somebody could be held accountable. There's no accountability. There's no transparency when you don't have an open records act. And they don't have it in Alabama. They don't have a pre-release program. In my lawsuit in 2008, I asked them to give me a list. And if they give me a list of those every 3 months, those who come down to their last year or their last 6 months of release, I would voluntarily, my own money, my own dime, my own time, go and do pre-release or get in contact with them through mail or whatever in order to start preparing them for getting out. Alabama don't have that. The education.
I noticed that you won the right, though, I think in 2008 to go into prison and to work with the prisoners. But so far, the officials haven't allowed you to do that?
Oh, man, they made it. They allowed me to go in about the first couple of years. I was going in through the chaplaincy. Then they made it so hard when Chaplain Walker, who was over all the chaplains, when he stopped, and when Kim Thomas, who was our former commissioner when Richard Allen left, and then Kim Thomas came on. They was working with me. We was in the process of doing the pre-release. This commissioner that we have now, Commissioner Dunn, I have yet to have time to talk to him. He won't answer my phone calls. He haven't got back to me, so I don't know. But the rest of them were working with me, even to the point that they came down, seeing my program, seeing my transition houses and all, and we were in the process of doing that.
All right, look, okay, let's go back for a minute because I see the strike started May 1st and it's in 3 jails. What are the jails that it's in, and what can the public do right now to help see that there's attention on this issue?
Well, actually, there was only 2 because the third one really opted out after about a couple of hours. So there was only 2, which was Elmore and which was Holman, which are the 2 major industrial prisons in Alabama that produce industry. And those 2, right now, what you could do, go to Free Alabama Movement. You could go to the dot online, THEDOTONLINE. We need your letters. We need you calling the commissioner of Alabama Department of Corrections and telling him that you are aware of it. We need Real News and everybody else to be sending letters of support. And we also are putting together a rally. I'm going to try to put that rally together sometime the end of this month or the 1st of June. I would love for everybody to meet me in Montgomery. I will be to be announced, the date to be announced. I would love for everybody to meet with me in Montgomery. I would love for Real News to come and let's rally around this. Because what we have to do is appeal to the Department of Justice that they need to come and oversee or overtake Alabama state prisons.
Okay.
We also want them to allow us to tell them that they need to allow us to do a fact-finding committee. That I did it in Georgia when they had the Georgia prison strike. I went inside the Georgia prisons, were able to talk to the people in there, the inmates that were locked up in there, and find out that there were rats, and some of the accusations that the prisoners were making were actually true. We need to be able to do that here as well.
Okay. All right. We're going to wrap up now, but we're going to revisit this, and I'll keep us informed on those dates. and
That's
we're going to follow the story because we want to stay on top of it. So thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having us. And thank you for reaching out to us. And one last thing I'll say, people
Okay.
need to understand that people with felony convictions are people. Get
Okay.
out your mind. We're not felons. We're not convicts. We're not offenders. We're people. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And thank you for joining the Real News.